Hello guys, welcome to another video, and in this one I'll talk about WebSockets. Now before I begin, I'd like to request those of you who are not subscribed to please subscribe because it means a lot for me, and then it will also allow you not to miss any new content. Now what I have here is a demonstration on how WebSockets work and how the HTTP protocol works. So let me start by explaining how the HTTP works. So if at all a client desires a resource, let's say it's stored in a database somewhere, and then it needs, let's say, an HTML page or a list of let's say users or products or anything. Now the client makes a request, it sends a request body and header to the server. Then the server communicates with the database and then responds back with a response object. And then once that's done, the connection is terminated. So it doesn't allow for duplex communication or bidirectional communication. If at all the client desires something else like an HTML page, let's say it's stored on the server somewhere, the client will have to create a new connection to get that file. And so it's almost like send send feedback, and they all have specific instances, but they can be done on one particular connection or handshake. But then for the case of WebSockets, this is how it goes. The client makes a connection request to the server. Then once an acknowledgement is done, we have a handshake, meaning the connection has occurred. Now from there, we have the connection persisted. And then the client and the server can communicate almost instantly, just as you would, let's say, on a phone call or on a chat application like WhatsApp. Now that's the whole point of WebSockets. They allow for duplex communication or bidirectional communication between the client and the server. So what we'll have here, the browser exposes an API called WebSocket. Now from that WebSocket, we can start or instantiate an object. Then that object will send a socket to the server after they've connected. Then from there, the server will receive that message sent by the, let's say if at all the socket contained a message, the server will receive that, then it will respond or work upon that, and then the communication is almost instant because it's done within one connection. Now, it's actually demonstrable, and then I'll do it using a project I have. So let's get down to it. So what I have here is just a simple HTML document which contains a form, an input, and a button. Then down here we have an unordered list. Now we have a style sheet. This is what I've used to style the body, then the form, and the input field, and the unordered list. It's quite simple. It's quite simple. It's nothing big. I've only added a background color and then did some display properties. Yeah, that's basically it. Then I have an index.js file which we'll use to create the socket. Yeah, so first of all, what I'll need us to do is create our server. So we'll place it inside a folder called server. Now inside the server, let me just bring this up. So once inside the server, make sure you're inside the server. What you do is initialize our project. So what this will do, it will give us a package.json file inside here. This is what we'll use to configure our project. And then in terms of scripts, description, and then the packages that we have. So I'll make a few changes here. So here I'll change the script to start. You can name it whatever you want. Start. I'll actually fill in this later. And then here what I'll do, I'll rename our file to server.js. And then what I'll do also, because I want to use ES6 syntax for importing the modules and exporting them, I'll make our JS files of type module. What this one does is it allows me to use statements like import, export, instead of using something like require or module.exports or something of the sort. Now next what I'll do, I'll install nodemon. Nodemon is what I'll use to have a refresh once we have changes inside our files. I'll save it as a development dependency. So I'll do npm i-t nodemon. Now once that's done installing, I'll now configure our nodemon. Now the root of our server, I'll create a new file called nodemon.json. Inside there, I'll configure which files to watch, which extensions, and what command to execute once we run nodemon. So first I'll do watch. Then here we'll watch. I'll actually create a new directory called source. So we'll do source, and then we'll watch our server.js file. And then the extensions that we want to watch for. In this case, it will be JS or JSON. And then the command to execute. That will be node inside our source directory, and then server.js. That's basically how we configure our nodemon. Now what I'll do here, let me demonstrate to you how nodemon works. So I'll create a new directory source, inside which I'll place our server.js file. Then I'll come down here and just do npm start. But before that, I'll have to include nodemon inside our scripts. So I'll come here and then just do nodemon and then run the command. Now once that's done, you could see nodemon is watching inside our source directory for the file named server.js. Then once we run it, it executes this particular command which we defined inside here. It's actually quite simple. Then now from there, in order for us to create our WebSocket server, we'll need a different extension. The extension.package. It's called WS, which stands for WebSockets, obviously. So we'll do npm i-ws. Now once that is installed, what we'll do here, we'll create a new server. So we'll do import WebSocket server from WS. Then from there, because this is a class, we'll actually create an object from that. An object will just be a server. So what we'll do, we'll do const server. Then inside here, we'll give a config file, which contains our port. Now for our case, we'll listen on port 3000. Then once that's done, what we'll do next, we'll register an event that upon which we receive a socket will emit. So we'll do this. Because this is in a node environment, this is how we handle events. So all this actually, they extend from the event emitter class. So inside here, we'll have a callback to run, if at all we have a connection instance. And from there, we'll get a socket. In our case, Because I want to demonstrate to you how the server and the client communicates, we just send back the message we get from the socket. So what I'll do here, I'll register another event using the socket. Then we'll name this message. It's actually inbuilt. Then right here we'll get the message, the incoming message from the socket. And what I'll do here, I'll just do socket, send, then return back the message. So what I've done here, once the server receives a connection event, this connection event is actually triggered by the client, and the client sends a socket. Now in this socket we register another event which we've called message. This message will actually emit whenever we have a message being sent from the client to the server. And what the server does, it actually returns the same message. That's basically all that we need for a server. So next what I'll do, I'll come to our client, and then using our WebSocket API, create a new socket, and then just connect to our server. So what I'll do here, I'll do const, let's call it socket. New WebSocket. Now this one takes in two parameters. The first is the URL. The second is the options. And these options actually contain the protocols, but we won't go into that. So what we'll provide here is our URL. And it's actually written quite differently. We have WS, which stands for WebSocket. Then our server was hosted on localhost 3000. What else you can do also to make it secure, just like HTTPS, you can add another S there. And then because this is the local environment, it's allowed for us to do that. Now here's what I'll do. First of all, I'll want to retrieve our elements so that we can use them. So I'll retrieve the input, then the button, and then loaded list. I'll show you how they all come into place. So we'll use the query selector to select our button, then our noded list, what else do we need? We also need our input to get the value to send to the server. Now once that's done, what I'll define next is an event listener on the button that if at all it's clicked, then we'll run a function which will send our message to the server. Now here's what I'll do. I'll do button, add event listener, click. Then inside here we'll have an arrow function which receives an event. Then once we receive the event, we prevent the form from refreshing before we make the request. Then from there, I'll actually run a function called sendMessage, which I'll define. Then we pass in the event object. So up here, what I'll do is define that function. So what we'll need to do here is actually get the message from the input and then send it to the server. So what we'll do here is do an if statement and say if input.value exists. Then what we'll do here, we'll just do the socket dot send then send our message. Then what we'll do, we'll just reset our input. That's basically what we need. I actually don't need this event. So what we'll do here, once we've done that, we just send, or we actually run this send message. And then this is what we do. Whenever you have this socket, it has a method to it. That method is called the ready state. Now this ready state tells us the state of the connection. It changes from 0 to 3. 0 means it's connecting. 1 means the connection is there and then it's open. And then 2 means it's closing. And then 3 means it's closed and it can't be opened. So in order for us to send the message only when the connection has occurred, this is what we'll do. We'll come here and do if socket dot ready state equals to 1, then we can run this here. Okay. Now this is the first task. Whatever we've done here, whenever we click the button, we'll want to send the value from the input to the server. Let me demonstrate to you how that works. So inside the server, whatever I'll do with the message, I'll log it out first. Now let's try and see whether it works. Let me start our server. Right there we can see our server is running. So here's what I'll do. Let me say hello and then send the message. I don't know why it's not working. Let me try refreshing this. Yeah, what we get here is a buffer. This is how the data is passed. But if we only want to see the contents of that buffer, we have methods to which we can use. For example, we can do to string, I suppose. Then once we try it again, see we get hello. So whatever we've done, using our client, we've sent a message to our server. Now, remember in our server, we also sent back the same message. Now I'll want us to receive it upon the same connection inside our client. Now this is what I'll do. Inside our client, I'll register a new event that will emit whenever the server returns back the message. And this is how we'll do it. We'll do socket or on message. Then we receive the event from the server. And then here what we can do is actually log it out, or we can create a list element and then append it inside our unloaded list. Then we can see it right below our form. And that's exactly what I'll do. What I'll do here, so we create an element. And then we'll set the inner content. We can either do inner HTML, or we can do, it's supposed to be text content, I guess. It's been long since I did DOM manipulation, so let's just do inner HTML. Then inside here, inside our event is actually an object, and Inside that object we have the data. Now this data is actually what we get back from the server. I'll show you how it looks like. So what we'll do here, we'll append this. We'll append the child. Then let's see whether this works. So I'll do something like hello. Let me try that again. Let me refresh this. Okay, let's check our server. We're sending back the message. Then here, let's see whether this works. I don't know why it's not working. Let's take a look at this. We've got the unordered list. Then here we create our list element. Okay. Then we set the text content to our event.data. Let's just do it in HTML. Then we append this to our list. Don't know why it's not working. Let's try that one more time. You know what? Here's what I'll do. Come back to my server. Then as I send it back, let's take a look at our server. It's running. Whenever I try to run this, this is actually supposed to run. I don't know why it's not running. Okay. Okay. Let me try this one more time. We'll create a list. I think this is where we had a problem, okay? Then we'll set our inner content. Let's just use text content, then set it to event.data. Then inside here we'll append this list. I hope that works. Oh, okay. This is not a function. Let's try that one more time. Oh, I've seen what I've done. I was actually supposed to do this. Don't know what I was thinking. But then this should work now. So if I come here and do hello, yeah, you see it's appended down here. Sometimes as a developer you have all these errors, and I feel as though it's actually good to allow you guys see like me struggle for something which is quite evident, so that you know that we are not special people that just developing things. And so here, before I change this to a string, this is how it would have looked like. So if at all I did, let's try it again. If at all I did hello, let's try that one more time. Let's refresh this. And did hello. You see, we'd get a blob. But then because I transformed it here, I made it a string. Because I knew we'll have a string. Then once I send it back, I'm waiting for the server to connect. Now once I send it back, we'll get the same text. Now this is just an introduction to WebSockets. I'll have more videos coming on. I'll actually show you how to use Express together with it. And then we'll actually use a server. We won't even have a client at that time. We'll be serving an HTML file from our public folders. Then we'll build a mini chat application. We'll do broadcasting. We'll do a lot of things. If at all you like this video, like it, subscribe and share. See you again next time.